excited for our fourth and final workshop. Thank you all for being here. It's exciting. It's an exciting moment, but also a sad moment. I hope you all sign up again. We're going to have new speakers. You're going to be matched with a new mentor. We're going to have new content. I think you're going to really enjoy it. But our workshop 4 topic is how to manage conflict in the workplace. This is a very big deal. And I think to maybe ask an early question, just to get the ball rolling on this topic, is when you're in a work environment, the question I have for you is, how do you want others to feel about you? Write in the comment section. I love to learn about it, because what's so critical is the intentionality that we have about how others feel about us. I think so often when we're in a stressful work environment, we think about blaming other people. We think, well, XYZ person wants to sabotage me. They're always trying to undercut me or undermine my work, or they just do these things just to frustrate me. But more often than not, I find that they don't do it on purpose. More often than not, I find that they don't even know that what they're doing is frustrating you. And so what I really want to open up for in terms of this conversation and this question is, how do you want other people to feel about you? Because there might be something that you do that frustrates somebody else. You don't even realize that that's what you're doing, because you maybe haven't set an intentionality. It just was the most convenient for you to do thing for you to do at the time, so you just kept on doing it. You had no idea that this frustrated other people. So write in the comment section, how do you want other people to feel about you at work? Do you want other people to think of you as reliable or dependable or hardworking or kind, friendly, always optimistic, nice, always having a good, positive, upbeat personality? How do you want other people to perceive you? I'd love to learn about that, because ultimately, this is your reputation. This is how other people perceive you. And this is so critical, because I think it's so often, it's so easy to blame others for the things that they do that frustrate us, but it's so easy to be blind to how what we could do might frustrate them. So if we can set an intention for how we want other people to feel about us, if we think about that every single morning when we go into work, our likelihood of actually fulfilling and embodying that persona, that person, increases substantially. So I want to ask the question, how do you want other people to feel about you at work? Now, this is critical, because ultimately this means that you're going to have to remove any other personal baggage to make sure that you're still staying consistent with how you want other people to feel about you. It doesn't matter if you found out your grandma just got diagnosed with cancer, or that your dog just died, or that you're having rough things that are going on in your relationship. Does not matter, because at the end of the day, what matters is, are you able to stay consistent to who you said you wanted to be? And the person that is the most professional, the person that is really bringing it every single time, is the person that can stay the most consistent. Because if you start to let your personal stuff creep into your professional life, it's going to open you up to potentially not being the consistent person, the consistent intentionality that you've set for how you want other people to feel about you. And I think it's really important that you really work towards doing that, which leads to the 3 keys to success that I've shared with you in every workshop, which is your strategy, your story, and your state. And fortunately, we know how to get ourselves into a state conducive for being successful. No matter what is going on in our words, no matter how mad, sad, angry, dejected we're feeling about anything going on, we can get ourselves into an emotional state conducive for being happy, even if it's for a temporary period of time, through our motion. So what I want to do right now is I want you all to stand up, and I want you to shimmy it out. I want you to shake it loose. I want you to scream at the top of your lungs. On the count of 3, scream. 1, 2, 3. Yeah! Just let it out. Let it loose. Let it go. You've got nothing to lose. Who cares if other people are looking at you? You're probably in your house anyways. With all the coronavirus craziness going on, you're probably in quarantine. This is the time to let loose. Because here's the thing, what we know is that when you are able to do that, you're getting your blood moving, you're getting your blood flowing, your brain, you're releasing endorphins in your mind, you're getting yourself into a state conducive for being successful. So by doing that, you are putting yourself you're taking yourself from wherever you were, and you're putting yourself into a much more elevated status. That is how you stay consistent. No matter what you want other people to feel about you, if you can get yourself physically into a state conducive for being successful, other people are going to perceive you as whatever feeling you want to set for yourself. So that's critical. The other key is your story. What is the story you tell yourself for why you will or will not be successful? This is critical. If you tell yourself, well, I can't do that, or this is impossible, or I don't know if I have the abilities to do something like that, you're going to achieve the outcome that you've set for yourself. And that is ultimately going to lead to the outcomes that you put on yourself. So if you tell yourself why you're going to be successful, if you tell yourself why you're going to make it work, you might have a chance of actually going out and achieving the outcomes that you want to achieve. Now, the last key is your strategy. What are the things that you can do on a daily basis to get yourself there? So maybe if you think to yourself, how do I want other people to feel about me? Maybe if it's to be kind. What can you do that's really kind on a daily basis to really reinforce that feeling you want other people to feel about you? If you want other people to feel that you are hardworking or confident or reliable, what can you do on a daily basis that will embody, that will reinforce you being kind, hardworking, or confident, or reliable? What are those things that you can do to set yourself up for success? That is your strategy. Those are the things that you can do on a regular basis. Now, the reason why this all relates to conflict management in the workplace is because these intentions about how we want other people to feel about us is critical to what we actually manifest at work. Now, it's so easy to get into a rut. It's easy to get frustrated. It's easy for other people, for us to blame other people for our problems. But here is a great way. This workshop on conflict management is a great tool for you to leverage to help you overcome a lot of the issues that you've got and that you've essentially had for yourself at work. One of the biggest things that I'm a big believer, I'm a huge proponent of, is this concept called this concept called observation, feeling, need, request. This is the key to nonviolent communication, which you might think, I'm not getting violent in the workplace. That's okay. But what I've observed is that this is one of the best ways to totally diffuse a situation. Whether somebody gives you a snide comment at work that you just didn't appreciate, or somebody made an action that you felt like just didn't respect you, or your time, or your abilities, or that overall just frustrates you. As opposed to getting pissed off, yelling at them, exploding at them, being passive aggressive and talking shit about them behind their back, or anything that does not target the issue head on, any of those actions are not productive. Observation, feeling, need, request is productive and can help you come to a solution. Now, here's how observation, feeling, need, request works. It literally follows the exact formula that I've laid out. Observation. What is the thing that you have observed? Now, the key with observation is that it's got to be undeniable. It happened, but there's no emotion to it. So, for example, the thing that really frustrates you is when John interrupts you at work, and let's say he just interrupted you 3 times in the course of a conversation. You can say, hey, John, I was hoping that we could chat for a minute. John says, yeah, sure, what's going on? You say, hey, so one thing that I observed is that in the course of this conversation, you interrupted me 3 times. Now, you don't say, you were being a jerk, you were being a dick, you interrupted me and really threw me off. Like no feelings tied to it, just you interrupted me 3 times. I started talking about this, and then you cut me off and started talking about that. I started talking about this, you cut me off, started talking about that, and then I started talking about this, and you cut me off and started talking about that. It's the key is that it's undeniable. It happened. It's something that John can say, you know what? You're right, I did interrupt you 3 times. Now, doesn't matter what his excuses were for interrupting you. The next part is the feeling. Now, the feeling is, how do you actually feel about that? You're not here to call out John and call him out for being a jerk. You're here to say, hey, when I am interrupted, I feel belittled. I feel disrespected. And now this is the big part, your need. Now, don't elaborate, by the way, when I say those feelings, don't elaborate on them. Just say, hey, I felt belittled. I feel belittled and disrespected. That's it. Everyone can relate to the feelings of being belittled and disrespected. Now, your need is critical because your need is like a higher level need that you've got, that you believe the world should work like this. In a work environment, the work environment should work this way, and that everybody can agree to that. And so your need is, you know what, hey, my need is that I work in a work environment where I feel like when I'm speaking that I'm being respected and that I'm at least being heard. And now that's critical. If you put that out there, John can probably agree to that. The last part is request. Now, what is a request that you can make to John so then he can start to take action that ultimately it can formulate change? Now, you don't want to make it something that's concrete. You don't want to say, hey, my request is that you never interrupt me again. Unrealistic. Probably not going to happen. John may interrupt you sometime in the future, especially if he's weaning off this because it was a habit. But if your request is, hey, my request is that when I'm speaking, that you're conscious of what I'm saying and that you try your best to refrain from interrupting me when I'm speaking. That's a very fair and valid request. John can probably agree to that because you're not asking for too much. You're just asking for him to be conscious of it. So that is how observation, feeling, need request works. It ultimately just lays out exactly what the thing that happened was, how you felt about it, without calling out John or calling out the other person or talking about how bad of a person they were, sharing what your need is and your request for how they can implement that for the future. That is critical. Now, we're going to talk a lot about this later on tonight in this workshop with our guest speaker. Our guest speaker is an expert on conflict management in the workplace. I think you're going to really enjoy what our guest has to say. But those are my personal observations about what I've observed to work in observation in terms of conflict management. The last thing that I want to share before we jump into our guest speaker is this importance of teaching somebody else something that you've learned. One of the things that I've observed is that when people go through this workshop, when people go through this program, 20 is the magic number. If you tell 20 or more people about something you learned in this program, by the way, it doesn't necessarily need to be that you taught them a full seminar. It could be that you mentioned to your significant other or a friend, a peer, a colleague, hey, I learned about this thing called observation, feeling, need, request in Ambition and Motion workshop. That could be it. We know that when people tell 20 or more people about something they learned, anything they learned in this program, their likelihood of achieving their professional goals increases exponentially. And the reason why is because teaching something to somebody else reinforces that information in their mind. And so by doing that, by telling 20 or more people, the likelihood that this is going to stick, the likelihood that you are going to apply it in your professional environment, and the likelihood that you're going to achieve the professional goals that you've set for yourself, because that's been such a big focus of this program, increases exponentially. So what I would love for you to do after this workshop is to find somebody that you can teach something that you learned from this workshop this evening. I think that will really help reinforce what you're learning in this program, really help you make the most out of this experience. I'm so excited to dive into our guest speaker this evening. I really hope that, and I really encourage you to participate in the program. You're going to get a new mentor. We're going to have new content. We're going to have new speakers. I think you're really going to enjoy it. This has been a pleasure working with you all, and I look forward to the next steps. Hey everybody, I'm so excited for our workshop this evening. We have an awesome guest. His name is Brad Finkelday. We are here to talk about how to manage work conflict in the workplace, how we can essentially build really strong bonds in the workplace and really be able to put ourselves in the best position to thrive at work. Brad is awesome. Brad is on a mission to help 10,000 people pleasers become confident badasses and do what they love. Brad is a confidence coach and has helped thousands of people live their best lives. Brad, thanks for being here tonight.
All right. Thanks, Gary. Hey, you want to fight about it?
I don't want to fight about it. I want to see how we can overcome it. So yes, we're going to talk about how to overcome this conflicts in the workplace. And by the way, these things happen all the time. This can happen maybe via lack of communication between people, or maybe I perceive that other people don't respect my work as much, or that I don't really know exactly what I'm doing or why I'm doing it in my company, or a combination of factors. Brad, what have you observed in workplace settings for why people have conflict at work?
A lot of it just stems from misunderstanding. Of misunderstanding what's actually going on. Also a misunderstanding inside of what the actual goal is, right? And then you put all of that, not understanding the other person, maybe not even understanding yourself, and then not being clear on what the boss says or what the boss wants. And it's just a whole convoluted soup ready for people to argue and, get at each other's throats. And it really starts with clear leadership. And if that's not an example there, you have, the beginnings of, conflict that can really be an issue. And it causes people to quit jobs. It causes people to, be miserable at work. And when you have an understanding, when you have a culture of understanding people and everybody understands each other, man, it makes work so much easier and so much better, right?
Definitely. That makes a lot of sense. Have you ever worked with someone that you didn't see eye to eye with?
Oh yeah.
Tell me about it.
I'm trying to think of a story here. I'll go back to, this was when I first worked at AT&T years ago, like when I first got out of college. And I was probably one of the youngest managers there. And I was taking over for one of the managers. Now, he was one of the most senior managers there, but also one of the most, I would use the word hated, disliked. He was very abusive or very hard-edged, you could say. And I remember taking over his crew. He had a crew of 12 people, and I took over his crew of technicians. And this is when DSL, just started coming out. So this is a few years, 2001. And I just remember the energy of this conversation, or of this relationship with this person. And he was, I'm going to guess, at least twice my age. So you had an environment where some 21-year-old, 22-year-old, fresh out of college, kid is trying to tell a 45 to 50-year-old what to do in their life, And I was nervous, but I also remember having a conversation with a good buddy that was still in college. And I was like, dude, some of these people who are older, they're like irresponsible. Like, this is weird. And I'm their manager. And I'm trying to tell them how to be at work on time. And he was like, oh, okay. And then he called me a few years later. Dude, I remember that conversation. Like, yeah, these people a little bit older, like, they don't know what they're doing. I'm like, well, this is weird. And, but it was, this energy there was, there was the conflict was, he didn't want to be told what to do, but I also had to manage the expectations of the business. Right. And, I didn't know this at the time. I didn't know my own superpower. And I don't mean that to be like egoic or whatever. But I didn't know that I was just being generally interested and generally nice to the person. And that helped win over trust, because we had to work through a few different issues. And as I got to know him better, I got to know what was going on, with things at home and just what was happening. And he knew that I was understanding of him. And that was the biggest thing that really started to create breakthroughs in his own performance. And he started to let go of the old story that, the old boss was gone. He had moved up the chain, and I was there to help lead the group. And so really understanding is the first thing, is like seeking to be curious about what's going on in that person's world. And then once you understand that, man, it opens up whole doors for people. Like, oh my God, I didn't know they were dealing with their mother dying. Whew, man, that sucks. I'm so sorry. Do you need a day off? Or whatever the case might be. So yeah, understanding is the first thing to conflict. It helps reduce it.
What if they're not comfortable with sharing that with you? What if they're not comfortable with opening up to you? I feel like sometimes conflict can happen from the reverse way, where I'm frustrated at my boss. I don't know how to communicate that I'm frustrated with this person, and maybe they give me the vibe that they don't have the time to have conversations and open up to me. How do I go about maybe handling that and communicating my own frustrations?
Yeah. So one of the things that is really starting the process of understanding who you are and what's going on with you. It's not a trap, but it can be a mind trap of sorts. I'm frustrated, but I don't know how to say that. I'm frustrated, but I don't know how to say that, and you can share it with the best friend or, a work colleague, like, I'm really frustrated, blah, blah, but I don't know how to share that. And inside of that trap is the key, is just to be able to share it with yourself and to say, wow, I am actually really frustrated. And that actually can start to lift open and kind of release some of the frustration. That's just the first thing. And then be able to share that with your boss. Like, not from a blaming standpoint, but from an owning your own feelings and owning your own story of like, I'm really frustrated right now with the situation. And I don't know how to work through this without you. And I know we have to work together. And I want to come up with something that works great for both of us and for the company. And just coming from that place of non-blame and owning who you are and what's going on for you is really important. Because if you come off and say, I'm frustrated because you're an a-hole, I'm frustrated because you're an idiot, that's not going to be received very well.
That sounds, oh yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, but if you share, I'm frustrated, I'm really not sure, but I'm committed to the success of this project or the success of us working together, and I want to kind of flush that stuff out. Can we have a conversation about that? That's a whole different ballgame for people to be able to say yes to. Like, it's not forceful, it's giving, in the respect of like, hey, I'm owning something here. I'm frustrated. I'm not sure why, but I don't want to be, I want to have a better relationship.
That sounds very similar to like the keys to nonviolent communication, like observation, feeling, need, request. Have you ever done any like work with that type of, that type of like methodology?
Not in particular like the keys to nonviolence, but it sounds very similar inside of like reflective listening and really understanding what someone's possibly going through, and owning your side of the story and being able to separate that out, right? And say, this is what's going on for me. Like, I'm frustrated because of X, Y, and Z, or I'm really upset that, this happened. And being able to separate the feelings and emotions is huge. Now, I'll say a general statement. Hope I don't offend anybody here, but usually women are a little better at this. Like, they understand their emotions a little better. And it's a little harder for men to, or at least in my perception, see, I'll own that. Like, this isn't a universal truth. In my perception, most men are not present to the emotions that are going on for them. They're present as in it's running the show, and I'm frustrated and pissed off and ticked off and and they want to do something about it, but they're not present to, wait a minute, I'm the one that reacted to the story of what's happening. Because most people come at it from a perspective, they did this to me. And then they just regurgitate it, and then they spit it back out and spit it back at the other person, and it's all their fault.
Is there any way that we could try to catch ourselves when we start to get into this type of thinking? Like, I feel like I hear this all the time where like, this person's trying to sabotage me, or they're doing this to like ruin my career, or like not make me get a raise, or not put me on the promotional track. And I feel like more often than not, people don't have the mental bandwidth to think like more than what's outside their own normal purview, and they're just acting what do they think is the best decision for themselves at this moment in time, because people are thinking about themselves, not about necessarily other people. So yeah, how can we overcome when we're falling maybe into this trap?
Yeah, so the first thing that comes up for me inside of that is when I had to deal with that myself. How did I start not blaming people? How did I start not being the victim? And so I've been on my entrepreneurial journey for the past several years, and anybody that's stepped outside of the corporate world and really done something on their own, they get to discover it's the greatest personal development journey ever, right? Building your own business. And what I discovered was that I had moved to Portland, Oregon, Austin, Texas, Chicago, Illinois, Kansas City, Missouri, in a matter of 3 or 4 years. And things weren't working for me. Like, things were just not working. And I remember this coach, he's a good friend of mine now, Richard. And he goes, what's the common denominator here? What do you mean? He goes, you seem to take you with you everywhere you go. And it was the first moment of many moments of me having to say to myself, maybe it's not them. Maybe they're a reflection for something in my life that I haven't, resolved. And they're just here to show me something. It's a tough one to admit, of like, maybe the boss might be right. Maybe I'm not doing the best I could, And so when that happened, that opened up oh God, no, man, now I got to deal with this guy. And it's like, it starts the personal journey and personal awareness. And it's been a profound shift for me to say, maybe they're not the issue. Maybe they're impacting things, because we all can have an impact, and every single person in this world matters, and what they do matters. But how we react to things can be more impactful than someone shouting loud and trying to make a point. And I want to share this quick story where this also affected me. So a few years ago, I was in a business development coaching program, and inside of this coaching program, the instructor, we did this we also were running a half marathon at the same time, or training for it. And we trained for months, and then we went out to San Diego and we ran this half marathon. And I did great. Like, I finished, the awesome time, like 2:12 or something like that. I forget the exacts. And I did exactly what I was supposed to, what was designed in the program. And we're at lunch afterwards. My coach then, she's a badass, and she'll call you out, She's going around the table and she's like, what'd you think about yourself, and how was your day? And really kind of digging into people, is it like what you thought it was going to be? And just going and seeing how people were, right? And where were they at? We're celebrating, we finished and it was awesome. And then she got to me and she's like, Brad, so how'd you do? How was it? And I was like, it was good. I finished it. It was great. I'm proud of myself. And then she said something that changed my life. She goes, oh, okay. Sounds like you didn't push yourself. And I was like, oh, son of a crap. And she was like, what about at the end? Did you push yourself towards the end? Did you really give it your all? And I remember in the last 2 miles, this is cool. I'm not going to push myself too hard. I'm just going to finish. And that's fine sometimes, right? And I really got that. I was like, man, I'm capable of more. I'm capable of doing and accomplishing more than what I let myself to be. And when I had shared that, when I admitted that to myself, it opens that whole door of hey, I'm not to blame, I can't be blaming other people for my own lack of success. It's all mine, right? And I went on another, 2 weeks later, I went down to Arkansas and ran another half marathon. And I shaved 10 minutes, 12 minutes, something like that, a lot of time off of it, because I was conscious that, crap, I'm holding myself back. Crap, I'm holding myself back. And I finished so much stronger and felt so much better about myself because I know I gave it everything. And part of giving everything is also realizing maybe I'm the issue. Maybe I'm to blame sometimes, that I can give something up, And it was pretty profound for me, getting that for myself.
How does that process work for you? I just feel like sometimes I'll talk to people and they'll say, hey, I'm just here to vent. I just want to put it all out there. I just want to vent. I'm not looking for you to come up with solutions or answers to my problems. I'm just here for you to just say, dang, that stinks. But eventually, though, we have to come over it. I guess the question is, how do you distinguish between the two of the dang, that stinks? Sometimes it helps the vent. It feels good on ourselves just that we can put it out there into the ether and someone else just empathizes with us. but then where we can start to realize that maybe it might be our fault?
I think you just have to be honest with yourself and say, did I try my best inside of this, right? And where are you at? And we all really are trying our best, but sometimes you realize, you know what, I really wasn't, right? So I'm trying to clarify that question because it's a process. It's been a gradual process, for me, to be honest and straight with you, of like,
maybe asking the question another way, is there someone that you go to when you have conflict at work that you can like kind of talk to kind of like help flow things through?
Yeah. So I think having an open relationship, an open dialogue with your manager, or even if in this case, if it is the manager, maybe having someone else you can trust, right? Is huge. And there are some work cultures out there that are not very open, and that's a hard one to get around. Like if you're not able to share something inside of the work culture, it just creates this whole nasty environment. I worked for a company where it was backstabbing and people talking about each other, and this whole like unwillingness to see that they were really not collaborating with each other. And it really does start with leadership. And inside of this company, man, they've had some big issues to resolve. And so if you don't have anybody in the company that you can talk to, find a mentor that you can trust to be open and get some reflection. And it may be that it might be someone else's issue that's going on, and you're just a part of it, right? And it does take courage to speak up in those situations, right? The quick story is, in this company, the situation got so bad, the employees voted out the manager there. They took a vote of no confidence. And it took the other manager that was there a lot of courage and putting his butt on the line to say, man, this person is just not competent. And there's real issues going on for this other person, the leader of the this part of the organization, and everybody knew, but no one really wanted to do anything about it because it sucks, right? But it was at the impact of the business, impact of the customers, and he had the courage to stand up and say, I am sorry, we've given this person 2-3 years and we are not making progress, and things are they're miserable here. And not that I can't own my own issues inside of it, but sometimes you do have to take that stand, right? And that's very hard. But it also, he had to get reflection inside of that for himself and find some people that he could trust inside of the company. And he did do that, and when you have that, it makes you feel more empowered to stand up for what's right, so you don't have those conflicts, or at least start to the process of start resolving them.
Yeah, and I would imagine that guy in that situation, he probably thought to himself that he was acting normally, or like he was in the right. How do you know when it's, not just a personality clash, but that you are in fact in the wrong?
When everybody else points the finger to you.
Right. Okay.
That makes sense. I mean, everybody has some sort of ownership inside of the issue, right? But if the common denominator keeps pointing back, multiple times, it's time to say to yourself, well, maybe there's something going on there for me. And it's really hard, it's really hard to share that, because then you can feel shame and guilt and like all of these other things. But it's very powerful when you get to step out, and you get to see like, oh my God, I never knew that. I never knew that I was the issue. I've had, like, even these last 2 weeks, I'll just be vulnerable here. Like, I know I've overcomplicated things in an avoidance of the being confident. You know, I overcomplicated things in order to avoid situations where I might get rejected. And I had to admit that to myself, like, man, I'm really overcomplicating this so I can do more things and do other things so I can really avoid the sales phone call, you know? And when I admitted that to myself, it gave me permission to be like, okay, it's not the other coach, it's not the other system, it's not this, it's not that, it's this person over here, you know? And not that I'm wrong or bad or shameful, but it's just something information I didn't know or hadn't gone deep enough for me to really get. And once I got it, now I'm like, oh, I got something to work on. Okay, I got to start simplifying things. I could probably just call people and ask if they'd like help with whatever, you know, they're dealing with in their life, because I help people with their confidence, you know? So it's been my own journey. Like, I wasn't born super confident. It's been my own journey, like this last 7 years of really taking on one thing at a time and busting through these fears. And I finally got to a big cornerstone one that I was super afraid to admit. And I avoided it at all costs. And it was like, what are they going to think about me? They're going to reject me. And I finally realized that what's really happening is I'm thinking that what they might think about me. And that's been running my life.
Yep.
I'm not going to call them because they might think I'm weird and I might get rejected. And when I finally admitted that to myself, whole doors open, like whole new, like, oh my God, you know, of like self-confidence have really opened up. But I had to admit it to myself, you know, and when I did, people were supportive of me. People have, you know, shared with me, like, thank you very much for sharing all this, because I do that too. And it's really cool when you are able to be vulnerable with yourself and others of like, yeah, I didn't know that about myself. I'm going to work on that. And then they open back up and they're like, yep, I have that too. It's really cool.
That's a good point. I want to take a quick moment to ask our audience who's watching us right now, what is your greatest weakness? Post in the comments section. I think this is a great way to apply it and start practicing it right now, is to put it out there into the ether, what your greatest weakness is. Because I think if we can build a community of people being open and honest about this, it can help people feel comfortable with sharing about themselves.
Yeah. And the cool thing is, once you get that out, like that, if you think of our bodies as like, not dry erase markers, but like a container, Yeah. And when we fill them, and we have some sort of like repressed emotion about ourselves that I'm not good enough, or what are they going to, you know, that whole thought like system of, what are they going to think about me? It just bounces around in this container for the rest of your life. And you never really let it go. But as soon as you admit it and you open the cap to it, you start to let that energy out. And then you can start to see back inside of everything, and it opens up a lot of stuff and it starts to flow out. So if you think of yourself as a container for emotions and energy, and when you have that pit of your stomach feeling of like, oh God, I can't say that, or that closure of your throat or your heart starts to do that thing, you know, and you ask yourself, well, maybe today's the day that I share a little bit more and let that thing out, right? And like, ooh, I feel this, and I feel like, ooh, you're going to judge me, you know? You start to let that out, and you start to dissolve that story that's been occurring in your life. And then you start to actually have more confidence around there. And you're like, oh, they're not going to judge me as much as I thought I was. They're thinking about themselves. They care more about themselves than they care about me.
Yeah. And it makes it so much more relatable.
Yes. And then there's trust. And then that opens up that whole container, you know, that whole relationship of like, oh, now I can go talk to Bob about this because he knows that I have an issue with self-confidence. You know, now I can go talk to Mary because she knows I have an issue with self-confidence, and she'll give me some good pointers, and then it just starts to build upon itself, and it's really cool. And then they feel that the really cool thing is, then they feel like they can come talk to you. Like, oh, Bob, like, I feel like crap. Like, I don't feel confident about doing this and doing that, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, you're amazing. You know, you're awesome. And you're like, don't worry about what you think. Like, this is what I think of you, you know, and you can give that feedback, and it's really cool. Yeah.
That's awesome. This has been a fun workshop, Brad. I've really enjoyed this. So I would, love to ask one final question. How can our audience connect with you and learn more about you?
So LinkedIn. So I'm the don't be a chicken. I'm the rubber chicken guy. That's kind of like my little thing. But they can go to don'tbeachickendoityoulove.com. That will redirect them to my website, bradfinkeldye.com. And send me a message on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect. I'm happy to have a conversation and see if I can get you moving in the right direction, whatever that might be. And yeah, thanks for having me on, Garrett. I appreciate you.
Of course. Thanks for being here, Brad. Have a good rest of your night, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Bye, everybody.